Welcome to our food preservation series. My name is Christy Stuth, and I'm the Family Consumer Health Science Agent for the University of Arizona's Cooperative Extension in Coconino and Mojave counties. Thanks for tuning in. Today we will review how to properly clean and store produce. It's important to clean your garden-grown produce and your store-bought produce to ensure that you remove all the bacteria, viruses, pesticides, and insects that you do not want to ingest. Although COVID-19 is not known to be a foodborne illness, it's important to rid your produce of anything that could make you sick. Typically, it's best to clean and chop your produce just before consuming. Cleaning before you store it may cause wilting or mold due to the excess moisture left behind. If you want to clean your produce before storing, just make sure it's completely dry before you put it away. Kitchen sponges often contain high levels of bacteria if not changed or cleaned frequently, so it's best to use a soft scrub brush when washing your produce. Bacteria like Salmonella and E. coli are commonly found on dish sponges and rags and also on kitchen sinks. Next, you'll want to wash your hands thoroughly for 20 seconds with warm water and soap. This is the equivalent of the amount of time it takes to sing the ABCs or Happy Birthday. Ensure that you clean in between your fingers and underneath your nails and dry your hands thoroughly with a clean towel or paper towels. The best cleaning method for washing produce is to run them under cool water and scrub with a produce cleaning brush if there is a thick or hard outer shell. You can soak produce in a mixture of 2 cups of water to half a cup of vinegar if desired, but it's not necessary and it could affect the taste of your fruit or vegetable. If you decide to use vinegar, just make sure you rinse the produce really thoroughly after soaking it. After cleaning, your produce is ready to prepare for cooking or storage. You want to dry your produce thoroughly with a clean towel or paper towels. Chop the produce on a clean cutting board with a clean knife and store in airtight containers. All this cleanliness is just to ensure that we don't get any mold, spores in our food to have it spoil faster. Ethylene gas is produced naturally by some types of produce for ripening. While ethylene gas is important for the ripening process, it can cause other fruit or vegetables nearby to ripen too quickly or rot faster. Apples, avocados, bananas, cantaloupe, kiwis, peaches and pears, tomatoes and peppers all produce enough ethylene gas to affect other produce nearby. So you want to store them away from other produce that you don't want to have ripen too quickly. We'll review a couple of these fruit storage recommendations. Avocados are best ripened on the counter and then stored in the refrigerator. Again, they're ethylene gas producers, so you could store them in a paper bag to help them ripen quickly, and then remove them from the paper bag and either consume them or put them in the refrigerator for later. Berries like blueberries and strawberries are really delicate and shouldn't be washed until they're ready to eat. These ones are ones that commonly get moldy if you try to wash them before eating them. Keep them in the refrigerator in a dry covered container. Stone fruits like peaches and nectarines are best kept in a paper bag on the counter until they're ripe and then moving them to the refrigerator just like an avocado. If you put them in a separate bag, say you have an avocado in there and also some stone fruit, you may want to keep them in their own bags so that their ethylene gas isn't affecting each other or other produce in your crisper drawer. Tomatoes should always be stored at room temperature, as the refrigerator will make them rot quickly and can also make them kind of mealy. Keep them in a loose bowl away from sun or heat like the stove. Celery should be stored in the refrigerator in the crisper drawer. And the onion family, like garlic and onions, should be stored in a cool, dark place, but separate from other foods because of their strong odors. They could affect other foods. Another one to keep in mind are mushrooms, making sure not to wash them until you're ready to use them. If you leave the moisture on them and put them in the refrigerator, they tend to get slimy. I'll share a couple of tricks of the trade that I have heard from other professionals. A tomato grower once told me to store my tomatoes on top of the refrigerator in a paper bag because the paper bag helps to contain the ethylene gas and therefore the tomatoes actually ripen. On the fridge just means it's up and away from the cooking heat and also potential squishing from other vegetables or fruits. One of my friends who's a chef advised that hardy vegetables like carrots and potatoes that need to be cut in advance before cooking or eating them could be stored in a container in the refrigerator underneath some water to keep them nice and fresh and keep them from getting discolored. Another trick that I adopted from the grocery store is keeping my asparagus stalks wrapped in a damp paper towel to keep them fresh. I usually cut off the ends when I get home, just like you would a a bouquet of flowers, and then wrap a slightly damp paper towel around the bottom of the stalks. That way they'll stay nice and bright and fresh. You can also stick them in a little bit of water for about a half an hour before cooking, and this will perk them up a bit. Water can help revive sad produce too. Just this week I had a couple of wilty celery stalks. One was way beyond saving, but the other one came back to life and got crisp after clipping the end of the stalk and then just putting it in a glass of cool water. It's always worth a try. It doesn't work every time, but it can definitely work, particularly with your herbs. The Dirty Dozen are the top 12 types of produce you should consider buying organic, because these are the ones that are most contaminated with pesticides and toxins. The EWG puts this list out every year, and these are the ones that made the list this year. You can read through them, but some of the notable ones are getting your strawberries organic, organic peaches, organic cherries, and organic potatoes. The Clean 15 are ones that you really don't need to buy organic, as they're generally just the way that they're grown and handled and processed. They are safe to eat in their non-organic form. Those include avocados, pineapple, eggplant, cauliflower, and cabbage. Something to note are produce that do not have an outer shell that you're going to be consuming, like an avocado, for example. We don't typically eat the outside of an avocado. Those are things that are easier to purchase just in regular form as opposed to organic, because you're going to be removing that hard outer shell that usually contains most of the pesticides. So now we'll move on to the demonstration. It's best to consume produce when ripeness is achieved and within a few days of purchase. Produce eaten at optimal ripeness and freshness will have the best taste, texture, and contain the most nutrients. So in this demonstration, I'm going to go through and show you how to prepare a couple of different types of produce. And these are kind of just broad categories, so they should work with any type that you're going to be using. So now we'll begin the demonstration. You're going to start off by making sure your sink is clean of debris. Give it a good rinse out, scrub it down if you need to, and then also washing your hands. Want to make sure we get underneath of our nails, in between our fingers, and wash all the way up to your wrists. The most commonly missed spot when washing our hands is going to be right here on the back of our thumbs. People always miss that spot, so make sure you get that really nice and clean. And then you will dry your hands with a clean rag. First, we're going to start off with our leafy greens. So generally, when you come home from the store, you're going to have your leafy greens in a plastic bag like this. Again, we really don't want to be cleaning them until we're ready to use them. But let's pretend we're preparing a salad for this evening. So first, you're going to want to remove the outer pieces that might be damaged, especially if they have one of those rubber bands or a twist tie around them. Usually these outer ones are really damaged. So the first thing you can do is just cool water and do a good rinse and kind of separate the leaves to make sure that the water is getting down in between. The other thing you could do is layer your colander inside of a bowl, and then you can take off the leaves individually. And this sometimes does a little better job because you can get the dirt that's down here by the base of the stalk. Just stick it right into your colander. If you have really dirty leafy greens, or you're working with something like spinach or arugula, which is a bunch of little pieces, you could actually just put them into the bowl, just like this. Fill up your bowl with water until it comes over the top of the leaves, and then you can let them soak in the water there. And that will help get rid of all the pesticides or anything that might be lurking inside that you don't want to eat. The next one we'll talk about are things with a hard shell. This is a spaghetti squash. I also have an avocado here. And typically you wouldn't think to wash these because you're not going to be eating this hard outer shell. I don't eat an avocado shell. I don't know anyone who does. And with my spaghetti squash, I typically just chop it in half and put it in the oven to bake, and I don't actually consume this outer side. The reason to wash this is because there are pesticides and bacteria and viruses that are living on the outside of the spaghetti squash. So when you go to cut it, what you're going to be doing is taking your clean knife getting all that bacteria and viruses onto your knife and then putting it into the meat where you would actually be eating. And then typically we don't wash it again before we eat it after it's been cut. So that's the reason why we would want to wash the outside of something like this. You can just use a little, this is a produce brush, but you could also just use any kind of soft brush that you might have around the house. Just make sure it's nice and clean and sanitized. And then just give it a scrub just like that. Now it's safe to cut into. You can put it right on my clean cutting board with my clean knife, chop it, all as well. Next one we want to talk about are our carrots. So these are going to be typically a little dirtier. As you can see, there's dirt on the outside of these carrots. I usually peel my carrots, but not all the time. So this is going to be one that you're really going to want to actually scrub. And so you'll just take apart, separate them, and then give them a really good rub down. I love this produce brush because it actually kind of takes a little of the skin off as well, but it really does a good job of getting everything nice and clean. So you want to clean all the areas, make sure you get it really nice and bright orange before you're going to eat it. Once you get it all cleaned up, you could chop it up, and as I said before, a great way to store carrot slices without them drying out, or something like celery or parsnips even, you just put it in a little cool water, put your airtight lid on, and put this in the refrigerator, and they'll stay really nice and fresh for a while. Especially if you're going to be preparing a vegetable tray or something that's not going to be served till later in the evening, that's a great way to do it. Next we'll move on to berries. Berries often come in a container like this. I like to wipe off my berry container when I get home. You can just use a Lysol wipe or anything before I put it in the refrigerator, just because a lot of hands have touched these containers before I get them home. So that's my personal preference. You don't have to do that, but I just like to do it. And then you want to take your berries, and this is where I definitely like to do the soak. Put my berries in a colander that's layered inside of a bowl, and then add my water until the berries are underwater. You want to pick out any ones that might be smushed or moldy, because those ones are gonna make the whole batch go bad faster. So I just like to soak mine, and then also it's really handy because any little debris pieces like stems tend to float up to the top, so that's nice. I like to soak it that way. Give it a little swirl around, and then you can just lift it out, shake, 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 and then you're ready to serve. And as you can see, there's quite a bit of debris left in my bowl just from that few seconds of rinsing. So I like to soak them just because you see all the stuff that comes off of your berries. So shake them loose and dump them into your bowl, and they're ready to eat. And last but not least, stone fruit. Stone fruits are things like peaches or nectarines, anything with a hard pit on the inside. And these again are ethylene gas producers, so you want to make sure that you're storing them separate from your other produce. So with peaches, you want to remove the stickers. This one's got a lot of stickers on it. It's got 6 different stickers. So take your stickers off. And then you could use your produce brush if it's really soft, but just rubbing the outside of the skin is going to work great to get off any of those undesired debris left behind. So clean it just like that, and then you're ready to cut it up if you're going to make a cobbler, or take a bite if you're going to eat it. If you're going to store your peaches for a couple of days to get them ripe, for example, this batch I am going to make a cobbler with, and they're not quite ripe yet, you could store them in a bowl, but if you pile them in a bowl like this, once they start getting ripe, they're going to start smushing each other and bruising. So instead of doing it in a bowl, I usually like to just lay them out on my countertop to make sure that they are in one single layer. If you decide to put them in a bowl, just make sure that they're not on top of each other and that there's room and space in between so that they aren't causing pressure and bruising up and causing earlier spoilage than you'd like. Thanks for tuning in to our produce cleaning and storage video. As a reminder, you don't need to buy any special produce cleaner or use any other kind of chemicals. Just clean running water and preparing your produce in the right way will ensure that it's safe to eat.